Good morning. The meeting will begin shortly. Please use the interpretation button at the bottom of your Zoom screen to select your language of preference, English or Spanish. If you do not select a language, you will be unable to hear the meeting. La reunión comenzará en un momento. Utilice el botón de interpretación en la parte inferior de su pantalla Zoom para seleccionar su idioma de preferencia, inglés o español. Si no selecciona un idioma, no podrá escuchar la reunión. Gracias.
Good morning.
Good morning, Dr. Spencer.
And good morning, everybody, and Happy New Year.
Good morning, everyone.
Hello, Member Gonzalez. How are you doing? Feliz año.
Igualmente, feliz año. Happy New Year to everyone, too.
Good morning. Happy New Year.
Good morning.
Happy New Year.
The meeting will begin shortly. Please use the interpretation button at the bottom of your screen to select your language of preference, English or Spanish. If you do not select a language, you will be unable to hear the meeting. La reunión comenzará en un momento. Utilice el botón de interpretación en la parte inferior de su pantalla Zoom para seleccionar su idioma de preferencia, inglés o español. Si no selecciona un idioma, no podrá escuchar la reunión. Madam Chair, the time is now 9 a.m.
Well, Amanda, good morning, everybody, and Happy New Year. Wishing you the very best 2023. I would like to call the January 12, 2023 APCD Hearing Board meeting to order. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll and swear in any witness?
Thank you, Chair Rodriguez. Before I call the roll, I would like to note all members are participating via teleconference. As such, all votes will be taken via roll call. Member Gonzalez?
Present.
Thank you. Member Powers? Madam Chair, we have Member Engelmann who will be sitting in for Member Powers today. Member Engelmann?
Present.
Thank you. Member Spencer?
Present.
Vice Chair Schlick?
Present.
Chair Rodriguez?
Present.
Thank you. I would ask that the following individuals please identify themselves for the record. Hearing Board Counsel,
Emily Helms, Senior Deputy County Counsel, Counsel for the Hearing Board.
thank you. Air Pollution Control District staff,
William Jacks, Compliant Chief for the district.
Scott Nestor, Civil Actions Investigator for the district.
Mary Mahoney, Civil Actions Investigator for the district.
thank you. I will now swear in those that wish to provide testimony on any item on today's agenda. This includes petitioners, respondents, and APCD staff. Please turn your video on at this time and raise your right hand for the swearing in. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you give in the matter before this hearing board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Madam Chair.
Thank you so very much. Just, before we get started, I just wanted to say, that Dr. Spencer and I have limited time for today's meeting for previous commitments that definitely will take us away from here. So just wanted to let you know that we'll definitely run everything efficiently and effective as best as we can. But just wanted to, add that. So we're going to be addressing, today's administrative items based on the agenda as presented. The first item that we're going to be addressing right now is the continuance of teleconferencing meeting option pursuant to Government Code Section 5495 and within parentheses E. And then we will now, open the discussion to renew the continuance of teleconferencing meeting option. Madam Clerk, will you please provide the background and, if available, also show, the Government Code section? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Rodriguez. Effective October 1st, 2021, AB 361 amended the Brown Act to allow suspension of the general teleconferencing requirements. If there is a proclaimed state of emergency and state or local officials have imposed or recommended measures to promote social distancing. Revised teleconferencing requirements must still be met, providing an opportunity for all, including providing notice of the meeting as otherwise required by the Brown Act, and providing an opportunity for all persons to attend and to address the legislative body directly via call-in option or an internet-based option. In order for this board to continue with meetings under the revised teleconferencing procedures, the hearing board must again adopt a resolution with required findings and adopt a resolution to renew those findings every 30 calendar days. The requested action before your board today is to adopt the resolution entitled Resolution Authorizing Authorizing Continuance of Teleconference Public Meetings Pursuant to Government Code Section 54953.
Thank you so very much, Madam Clerk. We are really very blessed, to have thoroughly an expert, in medicine, as a member. Dr. Spencer, I actually have to say that I had the worst holiday season ever because I was one of those individuals who was still sick for over 20 days. Could you please share with us the status?
Yeah, well, the status of things, COVID numbers are ticking up a bit. We're certainly not to the degree that we were last winter, but we're a little worse off with respect to COVID than we were a couple of months ago. At least the good news is that the flu and the RSV numbers have been coming down. So I think in general, we are on our way to getting to the place where we will not be able to make the findings, but I think at this point, we still make the findings to need to continue meeting via teleconference based on the numbers and based on everything that's out there. And I too have had numerous family members and I'm recovering that were ill, and I'm recovering from a flu-like illness myself.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. Definitely was one of your patients, I think, and I actually have to say that I have never felt worse in my life, so any other comments, from the members of the board, regarding, the continuance of teleconference meeting option? Definitely, I think, that in doing our due diligence and definitely protecting public, health and safety, I believe, that the findings, can actually be met, to extend Do I actually have a motion for approval for the extension of, or the continuance of teleconferencing meeting option? Dr. Spencer,
Yeah, I'll move to approve the resolution.
thank you. Do I actually have a second?
Second.
Perfect. I mean, so was that Steve Engelman?
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, I didn't capture the second.
Yeah. So who can
Mr.
second
Powers is here
the
as well.
motion?
Oh,
Right.
Oh, so hold it here, so I mean, so Madam Clerk, before we actually take, the second for Member Powers, I mean, could you please, ensure, that he actually is being called to the roll, just administratively?
thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Member Powers has now entered the meeting and will take his place for the roll call vote.
Thank you so very much. So I believe, that with that, we have a motion by Dr. Spencer and a second by Member Powers. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Member Gonzalez,
Aye.
Member Powers,
Aye.
Member Spencer,
Aye.
Vice Chair Schlick,
Aye.
Chair Rodriguez.
Aye.
Madam Chair, that motion passes with all members present voting aye.
Thank you so very much, everybody. So before we proceed with our administrative items, Madam Clerk, have we received any requests from members of the public that wish to address the board today on non-agenda public communication? Madam Clerk, I cannot hear you. Did we lose her?
I apologize for that.
No problem.
Thank you, Chair Rodriguez. We have received no request for members of the public to address the board under non-agenda public communication. However, one moment here. However, if there are any members of the public on the teleconferencing line wishing to address the board under non-agenda public communication, please raise your hand now by pressing *9 or using the raise hand feature on Zoom. Seeing no hands raised, there are no members of the public wishing to provide non-agenda public comment at this time, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. If that is the case, then let's proceed with item C of the agenda, which is the approval of minute orders for December 8th, 2022. For the San Diego, Pollution Control District Hearing Board Statement of Proceedings or minutes. Let's actually have the opportunity to ensure that the members of the board have reviewed, these minute orders. And if there are any comments, do we have any comments from the members of the board on the minute orders for December 8th, 2022?
I did review the minutes. I don't have any comments. I might have seen one "and" out of place, but I don't think it's important.
Thank you. Vice Chair Schlick, any other comments? Good. So if that is the case, is there a motion for approval?
Excuse me, Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Scott. I'm sorry. Vanessa.
Scott's fine. I do have a comment if you would allow it on
Absolutely.
the board order. Okay. I want to make a clarification about the draft board order for the interim variance petition 4530 on December 8, 2022. I will first say that the draft board order correctly reflects the motion that was made for the variance. So the issue was, though, that the motion omitted a critical part of the district's position on that variance and what we thought would be the board's intent. We had asked for the variance for surface emissions, the 500 ppm limit, to be limited to just the time and place of excavation and repairs in the gas collection system of the landfill, as that was granted in the emergency variance. The board order as written, however, allowed all surface emissions with no limitations. And as it happened, there were 7 days in December when surface emissions exceeded the 500 ppm limit in units 1 and 2 of the landfill where no excavation and repairs were occurring. So in the upcoming variance hearing later this morning, we're going to revisit our recommendations and make sure that it's clear how to limit the scope and the variance. That's all I had. Thank you.
No, thank you, Scott. I mean, that's definitely, I can see it right now. I mean, I have things, I mean, the side by side, and that was a great catch. I mean, actually, our apologies here. In the packet, I believe, that is on page 20 of 88 out of, the packet that actually was submitted. I mean, regarding that, So please do keep us honest because that is really definitely a critical aspect of that, as you clearly stated, I mean, was in the emergency variant. Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much. I mean, so if that is the case, and because, I mean, we're going to be seeing, that interim portion of, I mean, actually the regular variance, I mean, today, the interim actually expires today. There's definitely no recourse, I mean, or changes that we need to make, I mean, to these minute orders for December 8th. But definitely very well pointed out, I mean, Scott. So if that is the case, I mean, do we have a motion for approval? I will move to approve. Is there a second?
I will second.
I mean, Vice Chair Slick, Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Member Gonzalez,
Aye.
Member Powers,
Aye.
Member Spencer,
Aye.
Vice Chair Schlick,
Aye.
Chair Rodriguez.
Aye.
Madam Chair, that motion passes with all members present voting aye.
Perfect. So let's move, then to, item D of the agenda, which is the discussion of the revised hearing board rules of procedure. Definitely, I believe that this is really very important. I mean, have been continuing this for other reasons. And today we actually have time constraints, I mean, to see the revisions, I mean, and spend the time, that is needed to ensure that, the rules can be adopted, I mean, as such. Because of those two reasons, I would like to suggest continuing this item for the next available hearing board meeting. Or my preference would be to have a special meeting in which, we exclusively look at, the hearing board rules. Again, that would be my preference. So with that, I mean, I would like, to certainly, I mean, see, I mean, what the board actually feels about, I mean, continuing this to the next schedule, I mean, the meeting, or to have, a special hearing board meeting, or just to address the rules. Can I have, some feedback from the members of the board on your preference?
Well, I feel like, so today we have the Palomar landfill petition, and we have this was supposed to be just for this meeting. I just fear that if we keep on kicking it down the road. So you said yourself and Dr. Spencer, member Spencer, have to leave at a certain point, but I'm still here, and member Gonzalez and Powers and member Engelman. I mean, we would still have quorum. When do you have to leave?
I mean, I need to leave at 10:30.
Oh, 10:30. That's, yeah. So
Dr.
that's
Spencer leaves at 11.
Yeah, I have a hard stop at 11.
I mean, it is, I mean, and I actually have, unfortunately, we have, I mean, the upper management here.
yeah. And so anyway, I don't know. I'm not sure. What do the others think?
Yeah, I mean, again, I mean, with a special meeting, I mean, certainly we can dedicate, I mean, the time, I mean, that just to this item, as opposed to continuing it, to a regularly scheduled, where definitely, we would have to hear whatever petitions that may come to us. Again, there may not be any petitions, but we cannot guarantee that.
I mean, I guess it would probably be best if you lead the discussion. So even though there's more of us here that could continue meeting, I want to defer to you. So yeah, I would be okay with continuing it again.
I mean, if continuing it to a regularly scheduled meeting or continuing it to a special meeting.
It would be nice if we schedule a meeting just for this topic so it doesn't get pushed again, perhaps. So, yeah,
that is my proposal because that's what I feel.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that
Yes.
conflicting petitions, I mean, and other activities, in a way, again, steal away no time, you know, that we need to devote them into these activities.
I would agree with that.
Thank you. I mean, I feel on that one.
Yeah, and I would agree as well. If we have a special meeting dedicated just to this topic, then that makes it much, much, much less likely that this continues to get kicked down the road.
Yeah, I agree. You know, so it is becoming uncomfortable to me. I mean, if that is so, I mean, Madam Clerk, I mean, can you suggest any date, you know, where we could actually have, you know, I mean, this special meeting?
Madam Chair, for purposes of proper noticing, the next available special meeting date would be February 2nd. And an alternate meeting date would be February 16th.
Either date actually works for me. I mean, how do the members of the board feel about this?
Either date is fine for me.
Okay. Any conflicts with anybody?
Yeah, my time would be limited on both of those dates, but I can see about rearranging my schedule. I just have to look into it and get back to the board.
You said the 2nd. Let's see. I have a trial in the afternoon, but I would be available until 1 o'clock.
Okay. Which day? Either day?
On the 2nd, what was the other date? I'm sorry.
16th.
The 16th. I don't think I have anything on the 16th right now.
Okay. Dr. Spencer, will the 16th work a little bit better for you? I mean, if you actually choose that.
Yeah, it's a little more time for me to get my schedule rearranged, so I think the 16th would be a better choice.
Member Gonzalez, how about you, sir? Would either date work for you? I mean, with the 16th, it's also that we're leaning towards that one.
Ma'am, it's fine. I can either the 2nd or the 16th is fine.
Perfect. You know, I mean, that's so. So, Madam Clerk, I think you know that. I mean, the leaning is towards the 16th. I mean, to allow us not to prepare for the special meeting that will be dedicated. I mean, to the hearing board. I mean, rule. So confirming that could actually be the date with you. So it will be Zoom. It will be pretty much everything that we're doing right now. Is that okay?
Madam Chair, is that the motion? Can you clarify the motion, please?
Oh, sorry. Yes. You know, I mean, I would actually move, you know, to actually have, you know, the special meeting. I mean, on February 16th. I mean, via Zoom, via teleconference. I mean, that to be dedicated, you know, I mean, that to the hearing board, to discussion of the revised hearing board rules of procedure.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Do I get a second?
I second.
Thank you. So we actually have, you know, I mean, a motion, we have a second. I mean, Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Member Gonzalez,
Aye.
Member Powers,
Aye.
Member Spencer,
Aye.
Vice Chair Schlick,
Aye.
Chair Rodriguez.
Aye.
Madam Chair, that motion passes with all members present voting aye.
Thank you so very much, everybody. I think, you know, that this focused meeting, you know, will, I mean, be very effective and allow us to accomplish what we have here for. So thank you. So if that is the case, I mean, let's actually move, you know, to petitions before the board. So before we begin discussion, excuse me, for petition 4530, which is County of San Diego Department of Public Works, Palomar Airport Landfill. Madam Clerk, have we received any requests from members of the public that wish to address the board today on public communication?
Madam Chair, we have received one registered member of the public that requests to address the board for petition 4530 today.
Is that public member present?
Madam Chair, yes, they are present.
Excellent. I mean, so let's ensure that we certainly, listen, to the public member, at the end of the presentation. So please stay with us, no, do not leave. And so let's actually start with the presentation today, for the request, for regular variance. And thank you, Madam Clerk. And it's customary, the board will take the presentation from the APCD staff first, then petitioner, presentation of representatives from County of San Diego Department of Public Works, Palomar Airport Landfill, and then any members of the public that would like to address the hearing board today. Excuse me. So from the APCD, who is going to be making the presentation?
That's me.
Hey, Scott, so thank you so very much. I have a question if actually you will, with your presentation, will you actually have, a set of slides or something like that, that to support your presentation?
Yes, and they include new information that's not been provided to the board previously. So.
Perfect. So I would like, to enter, that your presentation as Exhibit A. To the file per se, today. So are there any members of the board that would actually like to second, that motion?
I'll second.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Member Gonzalez,
Aye.
Member Powers,
Aye.
Member Spencer,
Aye.
Vice Chair Schlick,
Aye.
Chair Rodriguez.
Aye.
Madam Chair, that motion passes to accept the district presentation as Exhibit A with all members present voting aye.
Thank you so very much, Madam Clerk. So Scott, this is your time, so go ahead.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, could you please start the slides? So this presentation is going to cover the district's position on the latest information provided by the petitioner and provided in their slides on January 4th and updates since then. And I'm going to start with a short recap. Next slide, please. Here is the map of the site provided by the petitioner. As you can see, the landfill units are outlined in blue, orange, and magenta. Unit 3, where the current problem is at the east end of the runway at the Palomar Airport. The closest residences are out of frame here, just slightly, about a half mile southeast of Unit 3. Next slide. The landfill is inactive, meaning that no waste is being deposited there, but the decomposition of waste that has been there since the 50s and 60s still generates organic gases, including toxic air contaminants. So to prevent those gases from being emitted, the landfill is equipped with a gas collection system that takes the organic gas to a flare. The flare burns the organic emissions, reducing them to mostly carbon dioxide and water vapor. If the gas collection system stops working, or if it's shut down intentionally, the landfill gas will come to the surface. In the permit to operate and District Rule 59, the district sets emission limits for surface emissions, as well as leaks from the gas collection system, and measures to ensure the integrity of the gas collection system. This landfill has been under district permit for over 3 decades and has not been the subject of any major violations or public nuisances. Next slide, please. So here's the timeline. On October 17th, the petitioner called in a breakdown because the oxygen concentration of the landfill gas was approaching the permit limit of 3.5%, and this automatically shut down the flare. The main issue is that the gas collection system is damaged somewhere underground and is allowing oxygen intrusion into the collection system. Petitioner was granted an emergency variance on October 21st and an interim variance on December 8th to facilitate diagnostics and repairs to the gas collection system. And today's hearing is to consider petitioner's request for a regular variance. Next slide, please. Petitioner has been providing weekly variance reports on the activities of the landfill. So let's take a look at what has happened since the emergency variance was granted. Very importantly, since October 21st, 80 days have elapsed and we've gotten 5.8 inches of rain at Carlsbad McClellan Airport. There were 20 days of rainfall with 11 days over a tenth of an inch. Petitioner has explained that rainfall causes safety concerns and potential damage to the landfill cap during muddy conditions. Despite these potential delays, petitioner and their contractor have conducted potholing on 8 days and at 16 different locations within Unit 3. They capped 8 lines in an attempt to find and cut off the source of oxygen intrusion. Petitioner ultimately reported that their contractor was not able to find a major point of oxygen intrusion underground. Next slide, please. In mid-December, petitioner upgraded the control system of the flare, which required the temporary shutdown of the gas collection system for about 55 hours. Surface concentration exceedances occurred in landfill units 1 and 2, and one exceedance persisted for 7 days, as shown on the table in the slide. The exceedances were not cited as violations by the district, as the variance was not strictly limited to time and place of excavation and repair in the board order, as I mentioned earlier in this meeting. So we want to clarify that piece going forward and narrow the variance to resolving the O2 intrusion problem, and I'll have more on that as part of my recommendations. Next slide, please. As we've talked about previously, the O2 concentration in the landfill gas is an indicator of the integrity of the gas collection system. A higher O2 level in the landfill gas shows that there is an underground leak. This graph shows that oxygen concentrations in the landfill gas have come down since the emergency variance was granted. And the trend line shows a decline of about 30%. The exact reasons for this decline are unknown. It could be the capping of the lines, a lessening of the subsurface heat event that caused the breach in the line, or the amount of water in the soil. Petitioner may want to provide more insight on this. Starting on January 1st, the O2 numbers, the oxygen numbers, dropped to less than 2%, which is compliant with the permit condition. Petitioner has told us that the reason is not because the breach has been found and repaired, however. Rather, it's likely that the recent heavy rain filled an abandoned storm drain in Unit 3, which prevented oxygen intrusion into the gas collection system. Okay, next slide, please. Moving on to today's request for the regular variance. The original petition requested a final compliance date of November 10th, 2023 to allow time to repair the gas collection system and replace it if needed. Petitioner informed us yesterday that they want to revise the variance period to end on May 31st, 2023. This would allow them time to locate and repair the O2 intrusion point in Unit 3, but not undertake the bigger project to replace the gas collection system. So the table here just shows the rule sections and permit conditions for which relief is requested under the variance. Next slide, please. The district is not opposed to the regular variance to facilitate the repairs in Unit 3, assuming the petitioner continues to make expeditious progress in locating and repairing the underground breach. We're also interested in the project to replace the gas collection system, but at this point, we don't see a clear need for a variance on that project. The district believes the replacement project would be more appropriately addressed as a separate future petition if needed. In the next few slides, I've included some notes about the replacement project. There are more points of interest rather than critical issues for this regular variance. Next slide, please. As your board is aware, under state law, the hearing board can grant the regular variance if the 6 findings are made. I've separated our comments by the repair project and the replacement project. For finding A for the repair project, we agree that petitioner will be in violation of the permit conditions and 2 sections of Rule 59. For the replacement project, however, petitioner has not provided enough information for us to determine if violations are inevitable. And petitioner informed us in a previous replacement project, a variance was not needed. So then on for finding B, we also agree that compliance is currently beyond reasonable control for the repair project, and we would like to see a continuation of the progress to date. For the replacement project, petitioner has not provided enough information for us to evaluate the need for the variance. On finding C and D, we believe the emissions would, go next slide, please. Here we go. On finding C and D, we believe the emissions would not be reduced if the gas collection system was shut down. But we would also point out that curtailing airport operations, unlikely as that is, could also allow for a speedier project on the landfill. Petitioner may wish to address the difficulties of working on an active airport site. Next slide, please. For findings E and F for the repair project, we've made recommendations for operations and monitoring of the gas collection system to reduce the potential for excess emissions and nuisance. For the replacement project, however, petitioner has not provided plans for minimizing excess emissions, monitoring, or preventing nuisances. Next slide. So these are the district's recommendations if the hearing board grants the regular variance. First, relief from permit condition number 8. That's the 3.5% oxygen limit that's during the entire variance period. Second, relief from the emission limits. That is Rule 59D12A and permit condition of number 7, which is the 500 ppm limit for surface concentrations. And Rule 59D3, which is the 1375 ppm limit for leaks from the gas collection system. And this relief would only be for the time and place associated with excavations and or repairs to the gas collection system. And I would ask that this last point be clearly reflected in the motion for the variance. We also recommend that the variance terminate no later than the end of May 2023. And next slide, so last slide. We also recommend daily monitoring for oxygen in the landfill gas and for surface emissions and leaks from the collection system. For the leaks for surface emissions and leaks from the collection system, we would like monitoring at least weekly and monitor daily at the time and place of excavation or repairs. This weekly monitoring request is a new recommendation. We also want to continue to receive the weekly reports as shown on the slide. And finally, we ask the petitioner to notify us within 24 hours when repairs are completed and compliance is achieved. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I mean, that's, as always, really very good. Separating the repair versus replacement, I know that I wasn't actually very happy, to be honest with you, with the schedule. That they have presented, so I think that was very smart. Hopefully, that petitioner will agree to that. Going back, to the oxygen, on 500, so is that not part of the condition? It's just the measurement, and then putting that as the exceedances, as a graph. I'm trying to already see your presentation. Madam, could you please go back, to Mr. Nestor's presentation to where the graph, is. Perfect. Thank you. So is this definitely, your suggestion, so to also keep, the oxygen monitoring, in a report, weekly report like this, or do you just want, the raw data?
We just need the data, the numbers. Okay. They've been providing just numbers for each day, and that's fine.
Okay, perfect. I just want to, that's my only question. So are the members of the board have any questions now for the APCD?
I do have a question.
Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, Scott, on page 13 of your presentation, you said one of the district's conditions is relief from the 500 ppm surface methane concentration. Yes. Did you mean only for unit 3, or did you mean for unit 1, 2, and 3?
Well, we want to, if they think they need to go into unit 1 or 2, I think we're okay with that. I don't see that happening right now. They have specified that the problem is in unit 3. What we're asking is that the variance for that limit would only be at the time and place of excavation and repair. So if they're working on unit 3, that's where the variance is. If they have an exceedance in unit 1 or 2, then that's a valid exceedance. That would be a violation.
And is the permit condition, so looking back at page 3, you have the underlying condition only for time and place associated with the excavation. So that applies to the first bullet, or the first bullet in these sub bullets. Yes. The 500 ppm surface emission limit.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Nestor? That's all perfect. I know that they will definitely have questions for petitioner. So so who will be making the presentation on behalf of petitioner? That be done, please.
That will be me, Madam Chairman.
Oh, I know. Thank you so very much. With Quincy again, welcome again. And where we're going with this hearing today. On your regular request, and certainly the presentation made that by the APCD. So if definitely go ahead, but certainly focus on those aspects of the APCD, and particularly on the conditions. So please. Okay.
So good morning. My name is Jen Winfrey, and I'm the unit manager in the Department of Public Works who oversees the closed landfills program. I do have some of my staff and consultant staff with me today. And as previously mentioned, we're here to present as part of our application for a regular variance for the Palomar Airport landfill for the conditions that your staff just finished describing. So this, the Palomar McClellan Airport opened in 1959. Landfilling was done in 3 areas between the 60s into the mid 70s. And the site continues to be an active airport. Both the airport and the landfill are operated by the Department of Public Works. Next slide. So as we've talked about before, during an inspection in October, we noticed some unusual settlement in the landfill cover, and then later we saw indications of elevated temperatures within the landfill, and that was quickly followed with that increase in oxygen at the flare. So our monitoring data continues to show that the elevated temperatures are limited to a small localized area, less than 25 feet in diameter in Unit 3, which is northeast of the runway. Temperatures have declined since mid-November, as well as carbon monoxide levels, which are an indication of combustion. So this has led us and consultants with CalRecycle to evaluate that the event is diminishing. However, we have not yet identified the oxygen intrusion into the site. As indicated on this map, the current event is the smaller yellow circle, and then the blue circle is a 2008 incident that was similar to this, that is very closely located to our current event. Next slide. So in consultation with regulatory agencies, the county did enact a 3-phase response that follows the standard protocols for the solid waste industry, with an objective to quickly and efficiently gather data to monitor the event and then to also resolve the event. Next slide. So the county took immediate actions to minimize and monitor this event, including shutting down the landfill gas flare temporarily right after the event was identified, inspecting for any other areas that might be experiencing rapid settlement or evidence of elevated temperatures, increasing the frequency of our methane monitoring to assure that any surface emissions remain below regulatory thresholds, which also meant that we were adjusting our landfill gas system to increase vacuum and ensure that methane was being excavated from the landfill and not coming out the surface. So going to the flare instead and being burned off as is the normal procedure. We also installed temperature probes in the area around the elevated heat event. They're a key monitoring tool for events like these, can give a lot of data on what's happening with the event, whether it's accelerating or decelerating. And we have had good data and good news from those probes ever since mid-November. Next slide. So we are working closely with regulatory agencies. We notified them within 24 hours of the event, and we continue to work with them, as well as the Federal Aviation Authority, who has obviously some purview and regulatory authority and allowances over what we can do on the site due to it being an active airport. The Federal Aviation Authority did approve limited day work in Unit 3, and we have an additional petition into them to expand that so that we would be able to move more expeditiously through the remaining work that we have for investigation for both the repair and then that longer term project of the replacement of the gas system. We report to APCD weekly as part of the variance requirements. We organized a site visit in November for many of the regulators in order to facilitate discussions on additional possible avenues for investigation and remediation for this event to make sure that we were acting with the best information available. The county also informed nearby businesses and made no-cost methane monitors available to all buildings within 1,000 feet of the affected area. This offer is still open to buildings within that zone, and all buildings on the airport have methane monitors at this point. Next slide. We quickly began investigations beginning in October, and we've continued them through this point. Similar events to these have shown that these types of subsurface elevated temperatures can be ongoing for a long period of time. So we acted quickly to try to address them and find that oxygen source, but to date, we have had limited success. We are acting within the regulatory guidelines as well as industry best practices and utilizing every resource and knowledge base available to us as we proceed, including the various regulatory agencies and your staff who have been very helpful to date. The county has established some baseline parameters to monitor carbon monoxide, which, as I mentioned, is an indicator of combustion, subsurface temperatures, and oxygen levels at the flare. In Unit 3, the county has been monitoring weekly for methane surface emissions since this event occurred. Ongoing monitoring has provided information on the event, and as I mentioned, the current indications based on carbon monoxide and temperatures indicate that the event is diminishing and has been since mid-November. Next slide. So we have identified that the oxygen intrusion is coming from landfill unit number 3. So that is where all of our investigations have been focused. Our assessment of the site has determined that the oxygen intrusion could be coming from one of 3 areas. There a break in one of the underground gas line systems or gas system lines and a capped or abandoned, depending on how you prefer that, storm drain that runs under the landfill or the landfill's cover. So to address the gas system, we have investigated 15 subsurface lines to date, as you can see indicated on this map, which ones we have done and ones we have identified for future exploration. We have also started work, and we are continuing work to assess and evaluate that capped storm drain that runs underneath the landfill. It was the source of the oxygen intrusion for the 2008 incident, and due to its proximity to this incident, it is one of our high priority items to investigate and to check off that it is not the source of oxygen intrusion. Obviously, with a storm drain inlet of this type, we have some challenges with weather, but we also had challenges because the inlet is actually on the private property north of the county-owned property. So we had to secure legal access rights to investigate that, which we were able to do towards the end of December. And we are proceeding with our investigation, evaluation, and options for improving that storm drain to ensure that it is not the pathway for oxygen entering the landfill. And then the third potential way that oxygen could be entering the landfill is through the cover. So from our recent potholings and borings on site, we have documented that the landfill cap cover in those areas seems to be adequate to prevent oxygen intrusion. However, when we recently improved the drainage of the landfill cover for approximately 35% of Unit 3, we saw a subsequent small decrease in the oxygen levels in the flare, totaling less than 0.5%. So we are currently scoping and scheduling for further drainage and cover improvements for the remainder of Unit 3 and anticipate those occurring within the next 6 months. So these investigations and remedial actions have resulted in a slight reduced oxygen at the flare, but they have not resolved the issue in total. So we did discover a small potential crack in one of the underground gas line systems at the beginning of December, and then we did our settlement cover repair, drainage repair at the end of December. And as your staff's graph indicated for the oxygen levels, you can kind of see the oxygen level fall during those two periods. However, it did not resolve the issue to bring the oxygen down below the regulatory threshold. Unexpectedly, following the heavy rains over the New Year's holiday, oxygen levels did fall to be less than 2%. It was not associated with the repair that we made, and so we do believe that those oxygen levels will rise as the site dries out. We believe that that decreased oxygen level is due to one of two possible rain effects. Either the rain expanded the clay cap on the landfill and has sealed in a break in the gas system, a break or multiple breaks in the gas system line, or the rain has inundated that storm drain, which is now blocking oxygen from moving through that capped inlet into the landfill. We have had some delays due to rainfall and the need to schedule work in advance. As this is an active airport, scheduling airport closures in advance is part of the requirement to do work on this site. And we have been working closely with our airport operations staff to get those scheduled. However, with the rain coming in and the requirements and industry best practice to not be on a landfill surface for 5 days following any rain event, we've had to cancel and reschedule multiple days or nights of work due to that rain event. So the reason why that we don't want to be on a landfill cover following rain events is you can, with very minimal rain, cause significant damage to the landfill cover. It also can pose issues for increased risks for employee safety on site due to the slipping of any type of vehicle or heavy equipment on that clay. And then for potholing and boring, you also it becomes much more challenging to potentially infeasible to conduct potholing and borings during or following rain events once that clay cap and cover has become saturated. So in addition to the investigations that we have done and some of the remedial work we've done on site, we have evaluated that storm drain and completed 4 additional nights of work for the temperature probe installation and that settlement work, drainage and settlement repair work that we did at the end of December, which should result in a decreased likelihood of future surface emissions from the landfill Unit 3. We're continuing our investigations this week and scheduling more work for the remainder of this month, and we'll continue to do so until we find the oxygen intrusion. But we are also proceeding simultaneously with plans to complete phase 2 of a 3-phase project to replace the gas systems lines within Unit 3 So phase 2, we do believe we will be able to conduct this year in 2023. The system replacement should improve system function, reducing the risk of methane emissions. And if we are unable to locate the oxygen intrusion through those focused investigations, the system replacement will also act as an investigation and remediation for the oxygen intrusion. Next slide. So today your board is considering our request for a regular variance for the immediate repair work that is being done to identify and remediate the source of the oxygen intrusion. As previously mentioned, the heat event has been diminishing since mid-November, which reduces the risk of any impacts to the community or environment, but we still need to find and address that oxygen intrusion that is feeding or was feeding the current event. Next slide. So for the 5 findings, the APCD must find to grant the requested variance. We believe that the oxygen levels will be out of compliance again once the site has dried out. They exceeded the 3.5% threshold between October, when the event was initially identified, through January 2nd, which was following one of those heavy downpouring rain events. As of yesterday, we were still below the 3.5% level, but for the last couple of days, it has been slightly ticking upwards. So we do believe that we will be out of compliance again within a short period of time. Compliance is beyond our reasonable control due to the undergrounded gas system requiring extensive potholing and investigation in order to identify it. With above ground systems, you can walk the lines and try to see where the cracks are, but with underground systems, it's quite a bit more difficult. The time required, additionally, the time required to secure the property right accesses to the storm drain inlet did limit our ability to investigate that as the potential source of oxygen, but we do have that now, and we are moving forward with those investigations and plans to improve that storm drain inlet to ensure that no oxygen can move through there. And then, as previously mentioned, there have been delays due primarily to weather, but also due to requirements for advanced scheduling due to the site being an active airport, and also the availability of contracted equipment and operators to do the work, which require several weeks of advanced noticing. We have been able to work with a lot of these providers to request if they have any last minute availability to try to get that availability to get them onto our site to do work, but we are somewhat dependent on their ability and their staffing to be able to do so. Next slide. Closing or taking of the site, we do not believe would reduce emissions due to the site being closed. It does not accept waste. So all on-site operations are to manage landfill gases and meet other regulatory requirements to protect public and environmental health. And following the first indication of this event, the county increased emissions monitoring, and shortly thereafter provided free methane monitors to nearby commercial buildings. As your staff indicated, there are no nearby adjacent residential structures. For finding D, there would not be a benefit to curtailing maintenance operations, which are conducted to protect public and environmental health. This is not an open site, so we don't see a benefit from that action either. Next slide. The county has taken actions to reduce emissions during this time and has also increased monitoring. We have not had any surface emission exceedances from Unit 3, which is where this event and our repair work has been located. We have taken steps to adjust the landfill gas system in Unit 3 to ensure that we are excavating as much evacuating as much methane from the site as possible without risking drawing additional oxygen into the area and exacerbating the high temperatures. The landfill gas system is on for the majority of the site. Only a small area remains off, and that is directly in the vicinity of the high heat incident. The gas system controls the gases and ensures that there is no nuisance or threat to public health and safety for the majority of the site. As we have talked about, we did increase emissions monitoring and provided free methane monitors to buildings out of an abundance of caution and to improve our ability to monitor if there were any impacts to the community from the landfill during this incident. And we also improved the 35% of Units 3 cover, reducing the risk of future surface emissions through those improvements. So we have and we will continue to monitor and quantify emissions. We have done weekly emissions monitoring since the heat incident was identified, including meeting APCD's variance monitoring and reporting requirements, and we will continue to do so. And next slide. That concludes our presentation, and we are available to answer questions for you today. Sorry, you're muted still. Sure.
Great catch, so just wanted to make sure that, we're talking here about Unit 3, and that Unit 3 is not used interchangeably, with Area 3.
We tend to say Unit 3, Area 3 is used interchangeably with it. Units 1 and 2, or areas 1 and 2, are separate units. And so yes, Unit 3, Area 3 are interchangeable.
Okay, just wanted to know that for the record, okay? So because certainly, I know what you're talking about. I just wanted to know that, for the record.
Yes.
Definitely. How about what is the position of the county regarding splitting the requirements of repair versus replacement? Is the county okay with that? I guess no suggestion from the APCD.
We are okay with this. We have had ongoing discussions with APCD staff on this. We do agree that we see these currently as two separate projects. So we have every intent and are putting every effort that we can into identifying the oxygen intrusion through these more focused investigations. However, the gas line system replacement was already kind of spec'd for us as work for this year and next year for the two phases that remain. And now, of course, it becomes a potential remediation if we are unable to more specifically identify the oxygen intrusion. It would become something that would potentially be, part of this, but at this point we are seeing it as a separate project. And so we are okay with that division and limiting this variance to focus on a repair work and then returning if the variance is needed, which we agree, we don't see that justification at this point for that bigger repair and replacement project.
No, I definitely agree with that, because those were the comments as I was reviewing the documentation early this week, and I guess no, particularly for the timeline, that's not what I'm looking for. So I'm really very glad that you separated that. I have a couple of questions, but I'm going to allow the other members of the board actually to ask their questions. Are there questions? No, from Ms. Winfrey.
I have a couple of questions.
Please go ahead.
Thank you, Jennifer, for the presentation. And first couple of questions are kind of 101 questions. That the plastic pipe underground is porous. That's how the gas is collected and sent to the flare. And so why would checking for cracks and other issues in the pipe be relevant to finding the source of the leak?
I will let our consultant, Brian Duffy, respond to that question.
And why don't I ask
okay.
the second part of it so that he can hit both? This is also a 101 question. When I look at the map, it looks like the extraction wells or the pipes are all concentrated in the northwest corner of Unit 3. Is that because most of the waste was deposited in the northwest corner?
No, sorry. The map, what you were probably seeing on there, which was highlighted, is the areas that we have investigated. Those red X's are the investigation areas. The gas line system actually runs throughout Unit 3. So there's kind of header lines that circle around the perimeter of Unit 3. And then there are lines that go into that kind of interior of Unit 3 throughout it. So there was waste deposited throughout Unit 3 to a depth of approximately 30 feet. So our investigations have been concentrated surrounding the area where the elevated temperatures were, because that logically makes sense that the oxygen would be coming into the system somewhere close to where you were seeing the effect of the oxygen. But the gas system is kind of somewhat equally distributed throughout the entire Unit 3 area.
Thank you.
Brian?
Thank you. Good morning. So for the first part of your question, the network of gas collection system piping, the headers and the lateral pipings, those are solid pipe. Those are not perforated. The perforated sections of pipe are the extraction wells themselves, which are vertical and go into the waste. And the perforated zone is actually down in the waste.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I had a couple other questions, and that is, number one is, I mean, basically what you're saying about the rain, potentially sealing the cap, and you had done some rehabilitation of the cap, the clay cap in Unit 3. Is that an ongoing thing that the DPW does? Is monitor and reinforce and check that clay cap to make sure that it's, the integrity is there in units 1, 2, and 3?
We do regular improvements of the cap as far as filling in any settlement areas. As landfills, move through their cycle of decomposition, you'll always have settlement in areas where you just have more, green waste or organic materials. And so you get more of that material kind of is, lessening in volume. And so you'll have those surface depressions. And so we continually go through, we look at it, multiple times a year, but we may conduct a repair once or twice a year consistently throughout time to fill in any of those depression areas that kind of show up. And so I've been with this program for just over 2 years now, and I think this is my second or third cover repair at Palomar. And so we do see a settlement in Unit 3 quite often that requires attention and repair. And so we add additional material on top and ensure that the drainage is correct to sheet any rainfall or surface waters off of the landfill so that they're not going into the landfill through the cap. But we don't necessarily conduct, systematic evaluation of the landfill cover on a regular basis. It's pretty much just trying to look at the surface and evaluate it. If there's any cracks or anything like that, we obviously fill those in and make sure that there's not a pathway for water or oxygen to go through the cap into the landfill.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Are there any other questions from the board members? From Ms. Winfrey?
Madam Chair, a member Gonzalez has his hand raised.
Please go ahead, Member Gonzalez.
Good morning. Thank you for the presentation. Madam, I have a quick observation. On the presentation, I saw somewhere, I can't remember what page it was. It says there's no residential homes nearby, but I believe it was mentioned that there are residential homes maybe half a mile southeast of there. So I just wanted to see.
Sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to see about editing or clarifying that.
Yes. So there are residential homes that are about a half mile away from Unit 3. When the regulations for landfills generally will look at 1,000 to 1,500 feet from the landfill for kind of that guidance of if you have the gas system off, if you have, notifications, or should you have methane monitors in buildings, they use the 1,000 to 1,500 square feet. And so that is what we used. We used the 1,000 square feet. And so our presentation, and I believe that it said this, but if it didn't, I apologize for the erroneous information, said that there are no residential structures within 1,000 square feet. We focused on the commercial buildings and on airport buildings that were within 1,000 feet. For our kind of outreach, as well as offering of those free methane monitors. It's just part of the industry best practice analysis and was included in Title 27.
So you go pretty much a radius of 1,000 feet, from your point?
Yes, so we did a kind of a GIS buffer from the area. We looked at all of Unit 3, and we also looked at the area where the landfill gas system has remained off during this time period to not draw oxygen into the area with a high heat incident. And within 1,000-foot buffer of that is what we conducted our outreach to. And then the residences were still some distance outside of that zoning.
Just a little clarification, between feet, and square feet, on that one. So, no, thank you so very much. Any other questions?
Just one final quick question on that storm drain. Mm-hmm. Is DPW the responsible party for the storm drain?
Yes. The
Okay.
inlet, unfortunately, when the property boundaries and kind of the land sales were occurring, the inlet was included on the northern property that was sold to a private entity. But the storm drain itself is on our property and is within our maintenance responsibility.
Thank you.
And so that I had the very same question. Good question, Amita. So, any other questions for Ms. Winfrey?
I got dropped out of the meeting and I didn't even before that happened, I didn't hear the last couple questions. But I didn't hear your question, Chair Rodriguez. So just letting you know I'm having difficulty here.
Oh, I am so sorry. I mean, for that. Mia, I mean, can you read, is there any way that we can actually provide that information to Vice Chair Slick right now? So the most recent question was asked, certainly, I mean, by Bill. I mean, and it had to do about ownership of the storm drain in Area 3, which, could potentially be a contributor, to those gases. So that's one of those. I mean, the prior one, did you catch, the one by Member Gonzalez?
Yes, about the homes.
Yeah, so pretty much it was, my question was, that Ms. Winfrey had said, 1,000 square feet, versus the radius, linear, of 1,000 feet, from the source. That was it, just clarification on that one. But those were the questions.
Okay, thank you.
No problem, you're welcome. Ms. Winfrey, I do have, a couple of questions, certainly.
Madam Chair, member Dr. Spencer's also has his hand raised.
Dr. Spencer, please go ahead.
Yeah, this question goes to the new timing as proposed by the district on the variance. How long do you expect it to take to get through your investigations to determine whether you can find and remediate the source of the oxygen intrusion versus the need to replace the system? I didn't hear it explicitly whether or not you were in agreement with or opposed to the district's recommendation that the variance be limited to the areas and the time of the work being done, and also to have the variance end on the 31st of May. I'd like to know your position on that.
We do not oppose the district's recommendation to limit the variance through October 31st or to limit it to for surface emissions or leaks from the landfill gas system to the time and place and area of investigations or remediations. So we are okay with those recommendations. It's difficult to say, concretely that we'll be able to do something that we don't know where it is yet. And that's been some, obviously the challenge throughout this incident is, we haven't been able to provide concise timelines. We have not identified the oxygen intrusion, so we cannot say how quickly the repair could be conducted. We continue to try to use all of the data possible, including using sorry, did I say October 31st? I meant to say May 31st if I said October 31st. So we are okay with the May 31st deadline for ending this regular variance. So we continue to consult with CalRecycle, who has a lot of experience with these types of events, to look at our data to see if they're seeing something that we should evaluate, as well as our consultants and staff and other DPW and county resources that we've brought in to assist on this incident. And so we continually are kind of refining and toggling where we're focusing our investigations, but to date we have not identified that oxygen intrusion. So it is difficult to say that, yeah, we'll absolutely be done by May 31st, but we believe that May 31st is a reasonable amount of time for us to conduct the investigations and options that we have identified for future investigations and continuing investigations, and the remedial actions that would be associated with those. We are simultaneously, however, moving forward with that full system replacement. As I said, this system was installed in the 90s, so it's well, at its age where we need to do kind of this major maintenance projects regardless of whether or not this incident was occurring. We had already had it planned for this year before this incident happened. So it is good that we had planned that ahead of time and we're able to move forward with that. But it's not necessarily part of we wouldn't be able to complete it by May 31st, and hopefully we'll have identified the oxygen intrusion before we get to that part of it. But if we haven't, it could act as that remediation and investigation for this incident as well, if that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
I need to expand on that one because I mean somehow it was a lot of I know that there are a lot of ifs. Okay, so but my question just dovetailing on Dr. Spencer, I mean, which was what was what is your confidence level? I mean, because I think that the request in front of us is for the repair, not just to find the leak, is to repair. And get back to compliance. On the exceedances that we're talking about. And it seems as though that that even though you would accept, as a CPW, representative, the May 31st, that's reasonable. I haven't heard about your confidence level. Nor have I heard from your engineers either.
I'm confident that we'll be able to move through the investigations that we've identified and the areas we've identified. I honestly could not say that I have a very high level of confidence that we will absolutely identify the oxygen intrusion within those. With an underground system and the amount of kind of pipes and things that have been abandoned in place over the years at this site, we have a lot of challenges with it. So with everything that we've identified, with the data that we're continually using to refine to refine where we're investigating, I do believe that we're moving in a positive direction and that we will be able to conduct all of the investigations that we have identified to date by May 31st. I don't know that I could say confidently that we will absolutely have that oxygen intrusion addressed within that time. Unfortunately, there's a lot of unknowns on this site, and other incidents of this nature have shown that these incidents do go on for a long period of time while investigations are proceeding. So I wouldn't say that we absolutely could promise to be done by the 31st, but we are moving as many pieces forward as possible simultaneously to address this. And conditions are currently in our favor with declining temperatures and very, very low oxygen level, or not oxygen levels, very, very low carbon monoxide levels. And then I will allow Brian, if you would like to chime in and add anything to my response at this point.
Thanks, Jennifer. I am confident, like Jennifer said, every day we're getting data out there in the field. And then with the recent rainstorms, with the oxygen levels that have dipped into compliance, that actually gave us the opportunity to hone in on where we might be losing our vacuum, or where the oxygen is, I guess, isolated to. So based on the current data that we're seeing, it's given us time to refocus for our efforts for the next potholing excavation attempt.
Okay. Again, if you definitely do not get to that point, of repair, not just identifying, but of the repair, then certainly, you would actually be coming back to the board, to request an extension of your variance, deadline. So, I'm definitely, people who know me know that I'm really a stickler to timelines, but we're actually talking about biologicals here. This is, an ecosystem, so that is very difficult to control, so that's the way it is. It's really very, very interesting. This is what I do for a living. And if there's something, I can do chemical, I can do radiation, I can do everything, but man, those are biological, so I have a mind of their own. Perfect. On that one. So I think, that is kind of the end, of my, questions, mine personally. Any other questions from the members of the board? Good. Madam Clerk, before we certainly start, working on the discussion by the board members regarding, this, I guess, adjudication of either the petition or not, could we actually hear, from the public speakers, please?
Thank you, Chair Rodriguez. As a reminder to the members of the public wishing to address the board today, I will be calling speakers by name or the last 4 digits of their phone number. You will hear a notification that your call has been unmuted. At that time, you will need to press *6 to unmute your phone. Each caller will be asked to state their full name for the audio record, and you will have 2 minutes to address the board. Please self-regulate your time. I will ask that you conclude your comments when your time has ended. I would remind the speakers to mute their live stream before they begin speaking. Our first caller is Marianne Viney. Marianne Viney. Ms. Viney, you will have 2 minutes to address the board today.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I would ask that you mute your YouTube channel, the live stream, so that you can, there's no echo.
I think that may have muted herself.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, Ms. Viney, there's a little bit of an echo. If you have your live stream open, if you can please mute that.
Well, I did. Sorry, I did, but
It might be because I'm called in and on the,
yeah. Should I hang up and then?
No, Ms. Viney, you're fine. I'll just go ahead and ask Vice Chair Schlick to mute herself for now.
Okay. Okay, sorry about that. But I appreciate all the work that's done, dedication, APCD and DPW. We met with DPW, Carlsbad community members and I, and we requested stakeholder status so that we could inform the community, so the community could be informed directly about the landfills heat event and all the investigations and remedies, monitoring, and so on. So we're continuing to wait for DPWs to respond to our requests. So we really believe that a 1 year or 6 month is a really long time to have relief from EPA emission standards that protect public health and safety. And we're suggesting that you consider alternately approving a 90-day increment variances based on timely and accurate review of those weekly reports. And we're of course, we want to see those reports continue, and I would like to see the methane surface levels of units 1 and 2 measured every time excavation and repairs are done as well on unit 3. I'm not sure if you're going to do that, but I would request that. And we'd also really like to see the weekly submitted reports be transparent to the community by posting on the appropriate APCD website page. We were not even aware of the potential heat event until we saw it on GeoTracker. We just happened to look at GeoTracker because we've done previous citizen volunteer work for the water board. So we'd really like to see that. And we have some questions about public health and safety regarding the potential
I would ask
elevation
that you conclude your comments at this time.
And also for the table 1 VOCs, toxic emissions, and also for those several years of consecutive violations for methane migration in the soil beyond the landfill boundaries that is ongoing. Thank you for your time and attention. Sorry with this issue. Thank you. Bye.
Madam Chair, seeing that there are no additional hands raised, I believe that is the last of the public comment.
Well, I mean, thank you very much, Madam Clerk. I mean, and thank you, Ms. Vini. I mean, for coming here and certainly providing actually your views. I mean, and requests. I mean, to the board. I mean, and the APCD particularly. So. Sorry about that. Had to mute myself for a second there. I mean, I would definitely like to proceed right now. I mean, to have a discussion. I mean, all the conditions. I mean, and certainly, I mean, the findings particularly. Madam Clerk, if you would be so kind as to show the APCD's suggested condition. So we actually have it prevalent in front of us. Not prevalent. Thank you. Excellent. I mean, so thank you so very much. It is definitely my personal, opinion and understanding, the landfill operations, and as I actually said, that ecosystem, that they need to control. That a variance definitely, that needs to be granted. Although I do have, concerns about, the end date that has been suggested and accepted by petitioner. I mean, certainly, I know that petitioner will continue working, with all regulatory agencies. I mean, in addition to that of the APCD to come into compliance, quickly. Certainly, the potential for public health, of not granting the variance, could be particularly catastrophic. That those gases actually continue building up. I have heard, definitely Ms. Vini, about the 90-day variance. But I feel strongly that, the petitioner needs as much time as possible. To get, to that repair, that identification, and that repair of the conditions that have brought it, to this position here. So certainly, there is no, benefits, to closing it. It's not an active, variance, and a petitioner has been willing to also accept, the conditions, that they have negotiated with the APCD and additional conditions that we actually have included. Those times now that they have come here to the board, whether it be during the emergency period, or the interim variance. So that is definitely, my personal position, on this request. Would you want, how about, the other members, of the team, Bill, can I actually ask you, that to definitely, provide, your position on this one?
Sure, I just step away for 1 second. Could you repeat that?
I'm so sorry. I have the little tick, in the back of my throat on that one. Again, what would be your position, on this variance request?
I actually think it's a reasonable request. The one item that I was going to check with the district on is the one request is the public commenter was looking for weekly reports that were easily accessible to the community. That would seem to be one very reasonable additional item to add to the list, but the variance conditions and the term seem reasonable to me.
Yes, completely agree. That's so, but I have no idea, if this would be, kind of a management, of APCD providing that, or, if it will actually need to, be part of the conditions of the variance, So I think, that Scott, I need to reach out to you. Is that request, I mean, to have, those weekly reports, that are available to you, I mean, available to the public, I mean, either under the Freedom of Information Act, I mean, or better yet, just have it posted?
Well, they are available under the Public Records Act. So that is one way to get them now. I think it's probably it's more possible for the clerk of the hearing board to be able to post those on the hearing board website as they come in. And I can forward those reports to Mia as they come in, and they can go and they can get posted that way. I think Madam Clerk, you have any comment on this?
Unfortunately, Mr. Nestor, those are not items that come to the board directly. So I believe compliance would need to post those.
I agree with that as well. I mean, I would definitely love, to see, I mean, the APCD compliance side of the house. I mean, making these records available. I mean,
So to speak to that, so the hearing board page currently, sure, at the district is shared by the clerk and the compliance division, prior.
I'm going to interject. I'm sorry. It is, the hearing board page is completely separate from compliance.
So I'm saying that it's utilized. It's utilized is what I'm trying to say. So I think that we could find a way to post that so it's clearly related to the petition. Again, I think that I don't know if it needs to be a part of this variance, but it's something that we can provide.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Jack. Because I know that the APCD, compliance has always been, really very transparent, and on these records, because the records are definitely already part, will be part of the condition. I mean, but the availability of this, I don't think, that we need to instruct, the APCD or anything like that, to actually make it public. I mean, it is public, and so, but I mean, to facilitate the provision, I mean, and availability of those on the website would be fantastic. I mean, to have it to the public. Thank you.
Just a quick clarification. I mean, it sounds like what we've got going here is a handshake deal where compliance will make this available in some way to the community. I'm not real comfortable with that. I mean, there should be something written that makes it clear that the information will be posted. And if it needs to be part of the variance, it should be. So how do we get, an absolute assurance that it's going to happen?
Would it be possible to have these for the hearing board to ask for these to be submitted to the clerk directly as well as the district?
I mean, if it's something that's part of the variance, then I would be thinking the petitioner, so Department of Public Works, would maybe post it on their website, but maybe that's not the easiest thought for someone in the public to have to put those dots together. So maybe it is the nicest and best and easiest to have it be on the hearing board website as like an ongoing report related to the petition.
Yeah, we're talking about things administrative, that certainly everybody has no sort of limitations, so, I mean, I definitely, would like, to still, these records will actually come, to APCD compliance. And I think, that, again, on the Public Records Act, they should be available, to the public, so I think that one phone call, to APCD, would actually suffice, to get those records. Because they're not going to come, to the clerk of the board. We need to make sure, that those, the bodies actually are independent of each other, and the request, on the condition, definitely. That those records need to be, given to APCD compliance.
What's the normal Public Records Act protocol or procedure for getting records from the air pollution control district?
We provide records that we have at the time of the request. We can't provide them in an ongoing kind of manner. They have to request it, and then if we already have it, we can provide it. So it would take, we will provide what we've got. That's pretty much it.
I guess my concern is if we add this sort of thing, it'll add on to the burden of the APCD, something maybe going forward that's already, part of the Public Records Act request process that, the members of the public that would like these records can maybe just do that typical thing, the Public Records Act request.
I agree, Vice Chair Schlick, and it's very easy. We have our own dedicated page for that as well. Just an email or your call is all it's needed, and that information is provided. So it's very straightforward. I agree with that. To add to the petition something that's already ongoing and available, we have mentioned to the public in these cases how to do this, but we will continue to do so.
And this is Member Powers. I would have to oppose this as someone who puts in PRAs routinely. You can wait a month sometimes to get the data. And we're talking about, I presume these community members are within a half a mile of this facility. It seems completely reasonable to me that you would post these weekly reports in real time. The public shouldn't have to do the lift to get the information. And I would vote against forcing the public to file PRAs to get information about their community exposure.
I'm sorry not to bring so early. Miss Wafer here. I think I'm butchering your last name, unfortunately. So could this be available? Like at the by DPW? You're going to be generating those records. Is she gone, Ms. Winfrey?
Yes, so we don't currently post these on our website or anywhere else. We would, if this is a request from APCD, we would recommend coordinating to discuss the appropriate agency to post these. We obviously have multiple sites and multiple regulatory agencies, so I'm not sure. We do, however, for the hearing board's awareness, meet with Ms. Viney's group, sorry if I get this wrong, Residents for a Friendly Airport, as well as present information at the Palomar Airport advisory committee on a regular basis. So we do meet with these groups on an ongoing basis and provide updates on this event.
Well, that here, however, I would feel comfortable ensuring though that, that this group, gets reports, as requested from either an entity, but I can definitely not going to be, I feel very uncomfortable right now. And I don't think, that it is our position to let either APCD or DPW a new administrative, burden without actually, doing that. I feel comfortable saying, that, petitioner will work, with APCD, to provide, reports on a timely basis, to the public. That I feel comfortable being a condition. Bill, how do you think about that?
Well, I think if you're already meeting, Jennifer, with these groups and you're providing the information, that's what we're trying to get at. So that if you're collecting weekly data, you're compiling it and giving it to them, that's the point.
We are not providing data on a weekly basis.
Can you do that?
We would need to discuss that internally and with APCD staff before we could commit to that.
I would definitely feel comfortable saying, that again, the DPW, will work with the APCD to provide reports, to the public, on a requested basis.
Well, I don't want to belabor this too much, but how is the district tracking the data that we saw in that chart if you aren't providing them the data in some way that's pretty intelligible that could also be shared with the community? I don't understand the disjunct.
So
We received the data as a PDF, document on a weekly basis, Wednesdays. And, we take for the chart, I just took the data and, put it into an Excel spreadsheet.
So why can't that be provided to those two community groups? Same PDF.
I think it's a matter of protocol and the Public Records Act.
And it's very correct. And the conditions actually going to go, to the petitioners. Conditions will not go, against the APCD. I think that the petitioner needs to work, with the APCD, and provide, the report.
Excuse me, Chair, just a final question here, because this seems just to cut to the chase.
Sure.
So you're getting a weekly PDF. You can't share it with these community groups, but if they file a PRA on Wednesday, you'll get it to them Wednesday by 5 p.m. Just let's lay out the protocol. If these groups want to see this PDF, they hit you with a PRA Wednesday. You hand them that PDF Wednesday. You just want them to file a PRA. So I just want to be clear on what they're supposed to do, because I think they're on the call, and we'll explain right now. You file that PRA on Wednesday, you'll have that report on Wednesday. They won't wait a week or a month to get that information.
So I hear you, Member Powers, that for some entities and what the health and safety code, or what the requirements are legally for the PRA. For the district, we have a time, we submit those as timely as we have them. So sometimes we have to, it depends what the PRA is, if we have to pull multiple records or reports. In this case, like you had mentioned, it's very straightforward. So our timeline is within 10 days. But in this case, when we provide it, if there's a PRA, we will submit that as soon as we have that request.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so very much. Very good discussion, by the way. Okay. Any other comments now regarding, the petition, in front of us today?
I'm just wondering if our counsel, Emily Helms, has anything to chime in about regarding this this last discussion about the records and making them public, and how quickly, and the protocol, and just following the Public Records Act, if you had anything to share.
Yes, my only comment would be that the Public Records Act does not require records to be made available by 5 p.m. the day they are requested. It's fact specific. You're entitled to a response within a certain amount of time. It depends on, if they're easily available and the agency, whether or not they can provide them. Just a clarification, the law doesn't necessarily require that.
Thank you, Emily. Any other comments from the board members? Okay.
Yeah, I just have one thing to say. Well, two things to say. One is that I'm a little less than 100% confident in the May 31st deadline, and would want to know what the procedure is if we approve this variance to end. Are we talking about having them come back before us to get the end date extended one more time, or are we talking about a new variance process? That's my first question, and I'll leave with that and see if anybody has any input or thoughts. I guess maybe that's a
Great
question.
I had the same thought. I was wondering, how will extensions work?
Madam Clerk.
Madam Chair, regular variance can be extended up to 12 months from the date of their filing. So if there is a petitioner can come back and request an extension on their petition, as long as it's within the 12 months.
Yeah. Personally, I do not like the May 21st. Dr. Spencer. I would definitely extend it to October 31st at least. Because we're looking, at that repair function of it. Second, we are getting, the public records. on a weekly basis. I mean, and then there's a different schedule of records, that we can actually get. I mean, so that we can trace, the progress. And then, I mean, the end of the variance would be, when the petitioner would report to APCD that the repair is complete and they're back to compliance. I think, the May 21st is a little bit too aggressive, particularly, with the weather that we're actually getting right now. That could actually delay, the progress, to petitioner. That is just my position. That's why I asked them several times about that end date. And it is up to us, to definitely, extend it or accept, that date. That's part of that. So if I were to make the motion, I would definitely extend it to October 31st. And tightening that, with monthly reports, as we actually get, that's from, for example, other petitioners. That just to track, their progress. And then, have, the flexibility of monitoring progress as well, so it doesn't, go back, that behind the scenes. And we do not have any alerts until that, end date.
Well, despite my lack of confidence in the May 31st deadline, I would still keep it because I'd rather hear from somebody a little more formally than just give them until the 31st of October. So I'm a little more inclined to take the change as recommended by the district on that one, especially because it's easy to extend. But,
Again, I'm just saying, that just from personal experience, from other, the things, and and there's the monthly reports, so. But I asked them several times. They accept it. This is what it's on the table. I just put my opinion on there, so I agree with you. Anything else?
Yeah, my second part is that the members of the public had asked for more, and at least in the written, I think Ms. Viney mentioned it very briefly in her comments, but it is also in the written statement that was submitted, was for information about the health impacts of some of the various toxins. And I believe I don't know if that's available in an easily accessible way on the APCD website, and I'm not sure it's something that necessarily needs to go into this order, but I think just in general for the public to have readily available information of the health impacts of all of these things that we regulate, I think that would be a very good thing for the public to have access to. Not sure how we go about getting it there, but I think that would be a very good thing to have.
Mr. Jack, do you want actually to provide that information?
Yeah, actually, just generally speaking to outreach and providing information to public and regulated community, we are actively looking to revise, and we have already revised some of our websites and other access for outreach. We also have the business assistance specialist that is a program and a dedicated business assistance program and business assistance specialist dedicated staff to answer any of these type of questions or specific. And we have multiple staff that can do that as well. So if people are interested in knowing that, again, not only if it's asked, we're also actively working to include that information on our websites, related to what the public is looking for. We've already revised our asbestos webpage, focused on not in the past, it showed a lot of the regulated community, which is important to know the procedure, but it's also about how it impacts the public. We're looking at other websites as well to do that as well. So that's the efforts we're currently making. Again, we have dedicated staff to answer those questions when they come in as well.
Thank you.
Sure.
I have to say, from personal experience, I have brought, staff, to meetings, with the community. And they are really very versed, and it has been a very successful opportunity. So that definitely goes on to the public. They can definitely ask me for that type of personal intervention. Okay, so we actually have about 15 minutes. I'm a little bit over here. Do I actually have anybody who would want to make a motion and make the finding?
I'll make the motion.
Go ahead, members list
Yes.
with the
Can-
finding.
Yeah, I can make the motion to make the findings.
Go ahead.
Okay. fix it. Of course, it's easier said than done. Okay. Where did it go? Maria, Mia, would you pull up the findings so they're easy to make? I feel like I have this on my, oh. Here we go. So the first one is petitioner is or will be in violation of district rule PTO number 910733, condition number 7 and 8, and rule 59E3, rule 59D1 sub 2, subsection A, and rule 59D3. And that due to conditions beyond the reasonable control of petitioner requiring compliance would result in either an arbitrary or unreasonable taking of property or the practical closing of a lawful business. This one, I think, is based on the fact that this is a public agency, and it would impose an unreasonable burden upon an essential public service. This is a landfill gas controller processing facility, so it qualifies under finding B. The taking or closing would be without a corresponding benefit in reducing air contaminants. And in fact, it would probably make them worse, right? Okay, let's see. And the let's see, it's a closed site. It doesn't accept waste. Stopping the operation of the landfill gas system. Right now, the majority of the site is still in service, and only a portion of it has to be curtailed at times. For number D, for item D, the applicant did consider curtailing operations of the emission source in lieu of obtaining a variance. And we would find that this is already a closed site. There's no active waste being accepted, and curtailing maintenance operations would not improve the public health or safety. And then for finding E, petitioner will reduce excess emissions to the maximum extent possible. If you want to go to the next page, Mia. That we would find that because the landfill gas system is operational for the majority of the site, including the flare that controls the landfill gases and ensures there's no nuisance or threat to public health or safety, the increased emissions allowed by the variance will be monitored, and the county provided free methane monitors to buildings on site and to nearby parcels. And the county improved the cover of the landfill cap 35%, and that's reducing the risk of surface emissions. And the petitioner and the board will find for finding F. During the period the variance is in effect, the applicant will monitor or otherwise quantify emission levels from the source if requested to do so by the district, which is requested, and report these emission levels to the district pursuant to a schedule established by the district. And what I had down in my notes here was that there will be weekly monitoring, and those weekly reports will be turned in every Wednesday. And daily monitoring will happen during repair and excavation time periods.
Yeah, could you please know, I mean, that if you have it available, I mean, that put the conditions, that's suggested by the district. Because I mean, that we want to make sure, that we capture it correctly.
Let's make sure, let's see, do I have the districts? Let me see if there was anything else to add. Yeah. So the daily monitoring of the landfill gas oxygen emissions percentages and monitoring for surface emissions and leaks from gas collection system, that'll be weekly, and daily during any repair or excavation, that will be in units of parts per million of volume. Weekly reports for monitoring results, the potholing repairs and potholing schedule will be sent to scott.nestor@sdapcd.org by Wednesday close of business, and to notify the district within 24 hours when repairs are completed and compliance is achieved. And then the end date for this variance is going to be May 31st of 2023. And that will allow us to get a report if an extension is needed. And specifically, the relief is the 500 parts per million surface emission limit and the 1,375 parts per million leak limit. And it's to be limited in time and scope only for the time and place associated with excavation and repair to the gas collection system. So generally, we're talking about Unit 3, and that this isn't going to be happening in Unit 1 or 2. That would not be allowed under this variance. That would be a separate violation, as Scott had wanted us to include when he talked at the beginning of the meeting.
Again, I mean, the petitioner is in violation, no will be. And definitely this is exclusively not for Unit 3. I mean, and that's what I actually need to say, I mean, at the beginning. And I would like, to add an additional condition. And that will be that should petitioner need an extension to this variance, I mean, the petitioner will start, working with the clerk of the board and the APCD 3 weeks prior to expiration of the variance. I mean, so that, the variance is definitely heard. I mean, I mean, prior to expiration date, I mean, perfect. Yeah, bless your heart. I mean, I know that, it's always a challenge, I mean, to work through those. So thank you so very much. Could you please call the roll? I mean, excuse me, I have a first, I mean, I guess a motion, but do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you so very much, Mia. I mean, now could you please call the roll?
Member Gonzalez,
Aye.
Member Powers,
Aye.
Member Spencer,
Aye.
Vice Chair Schlick,
Aye.
Chair Rodriguez.
Aye.
Madam Chair, that motion passes with all members of the board voting aye.
Thank you so very much. I mean, before closing, certainly, I mean, I would like to ensure that the public, has free access, I mean, to the APCD. I mean, and that they actually reach out to the APCD and get versed on the Public the Records Act, I mean, the Request Act, so that the information is available to them. And certainly, the APCD outreach program is very responsive, and so certainly, I mean, that information needs to, get to them. I mean, within another time allotted. So let's actually, I encourage you to continue working with the APCD, to get the information that's needed. So, I mean, I believe, that, I mean, there's no other items on the agenda, for today. So I thank you, and thank everybody, I mean, that has actually participated, and this concludes our business for today. The next meeting of the hearing board, will take place on January 26th, 2023 at 9 o'clock. Therefore, I mean, I wish all of you a fantastic week and a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.